and be known. You know, that's the big theme of our church right now, is to know, to be known, and to make known the real Jesus. And today it starts a series on that. It's just a 2-week series. And then next week we'll have the big shindig and all. But today we want to talk about to know and to be known by God. He knows me. I know that he knows me. And I know him. And the question is, how great is your God? How great is your God? You have to understand God a little bit to realize how much he loves you and how well he knows you in order to get out of this life what he wants you to get out of this life, and what you need to get out of this life. So how many of you want to know God better? I lost some of you there. I know some people I know God, love him, love everything about him. I especially love how slow he is. But we all need to know God better. By the way, if you're wondering where Cody is, he's taking one more vacation before the next little one gets here, and they won't be able to go anywhere for a long time. So I hope they're having fun out there. It's a nice little trip they're taking, and that's pretty cool. Pray for them. They got a baby. Lost. You know, there's different levels of relationships. There's different levels of knowing people. You know what I mean? Like Welton over here. I know Welton. I know who he is. I like him. I've even told other people he is the sweetest, gentle man that I think I've ever met. I know about where he lives, and I know what he drives. I know he'll be here every Sunday if he's able to be. And so in that way, I know Welton. But now I know Pastor Cody a little better. I've known him all of his life, ever since he was probably, 5 or 6 years old. We've gone to church together for most of our life. I've just watched him grow up. I've watched him grow spiritually. I've mentored him. I've been his Sunday school teacher. I've been his youth leader. I've been a small group leader, and all this stuff. I know his goals. I know his ambitions. I know what he wants for you, and I know Cody. But there's another level. This woman sitting right over here knows me. She knows things about me I won't allow her to tell you. She's got that level of knowledge and commitment and relationship. And I think God wants us to get past a Welton relationship and even get past a Cody relationship and get to an intimate relationship with him, where we can turn everything that we've got over to him, and we can turn all of our thoughts and you know what? Why is it that we're afraid to pray certain prayers? Why do we want to, like for instance, if you're disappointed in God, we don't want to tell him that. He already knows. There's no reason not to tell him. You know, we need an intimate relationship with him. And then when you get that, then you start to realize just a little bit of the breadth and the height and the width of this great God. How big is your God? He knows you. How big is your God? And you're going to show it by the way you pray. You're going to show it by the way you conduct business. You're going to show it by the way you treat others, the way you respond under pressure, the way you stand up for truth, the way you express your worship. Does that reveal a big God, or does that reveal a little God? My question to you is, are you a big Godder or are you a little Godder? Does your prayers bless him, or does your prayers insult him? I think a lot of times we sit there and we pray prayer, if it be your will, help me get through the day. That's insulting to God. He's sitting there because he's on his throne in heaven saying, I've given you everything that you need. I've blessed you. Why don't you ask me for something you can't do? Be a big Godder. I know Pastor Cody's praying some prayers for this church right now that he can't do. These are big prayers. These are big things. Does your giving reveal that you trust him? And yeah, I'm talking to people who are on a shoestring budget, and I've been there. I get that. During the housing crash, 08 and 09, and I was working at Walmart just to buy groceries, and I'm not exaggerating that at all. God never missed a tithe check, and I mean a full tithe check, because I could not afford to have what little I had not be blessed. Now, I think that things are way different now, but it's because I learned his faithfulness then when I had nothing, and I learned to trust him. So I just figured if he could handle death, hell, and the grave, he can handle the power bill. Tozer said, whatever you think of God will determine what you think of everything else. What you think of God will determine what you think of everything else. And y'all pay attention. I'm not going to preach long this morning. I'll have you out of here before anybody. There's people in this room that have a little bit of faith in a little God, but they don't have great faith in a great God. And that's easier said than done. So how do we go from being a little God person to a big God person? Well, I'm glad you asked. Because there was an ancient king named David, and he wrote a song that powerfully reminds us of how well he knows us and how great he is. It's Psalms 139. And the first 6 verses say this: "Oh Lord, you've examined my heart. You know everything about me. You know when I sit up or stand up. You know my thoughts even when I'm far away. You see me when I travel and when I rest at home. You know everything I do. You know what I'm going to say even before I say it, Lord. You go before me and you follow me. You place your hand of blessing on my head. Such knowledge is too wonderful to me. Too great for me to understand. I can trust a God that's omniscient." If you're taking notes, that's point 1. I can trust a God that's omniscient, all-knowing. God knows everything about everything all the time. He even understands women. You ever been around a know-it-all? You know, that's some of you said, yeah, I'm married to them. But they're like the smartest person in the world. If you don't believe it, just ask them. You know, they know everything about everything. Well, God is the ultimate know-it-all. Only he's not acting. He knows everything. You can't, God will never go, didn't know that. You'll never surprise him. You know that he's the ultimate know-it-all. The quicker you learn that he has all knowledge, the quicker you're going to start to understand how great God is. David said that I can trust a God that's omniscient. That's a compound Latin word. I had to look this up because I never took a day of Latin in my life. But it comes from a compound word, omni, meaning all, and sentia, to know. 1 John 3:20 says, even if we feel guilty, God is greater than our feelings and he knows everything. God's just like your teenager. You can't tell them nothing. They know everything. Sorry, y'all. I didn't mean to insult you like that. God knows you better than you know you. He knows you better than your husband knows you. He knows you better than your wife knows you. He knows you better than your parents know you. He knows you inside and out. That reminds me of a story, of course, just about everything does. There was a prosecuting attorney one time that called this woman to the stand. Her name was Sue, and she was kind of a know-it-all type person there, busybody in the community. And the attorney said, Miss Adams, do you know me? And she said, well, yeah, I've known you since you were a little boy. I know a whole lot about you. In fact, you've been quite a disappointment. You lie, you cheat on your wife, you talk about people, you charge too much for your services, and you don't have the brains to know that you'll never amount to anything more than a 2-bit pencil pusher. Yep, I know you. Well, he was a little bit shocked. But he composed himself and pointed to the other attorney. He said, do you know this attorney? She said, well, sure. I've known him since he was a little boy too. He's been a disappointment. He's lazy, does drugs, he cheated through law school, he can't find a woman that'll marry him, and he's the crookedest lawyer in the state. So the judge pounds the gavel. He calls him up to the bench, and when the two attorneys came up to the bench, he said, with fire in his eyes, the judge says, if either one of you ask her if she knows me, I'm going to put you under jail for contempt of court. God knows you. In verse 1, go back to that. He said, "Oh, Lord, you have examined my heart and know everything about me." He knows you. God has x-ray vision. He can look down into the depths of your heart where nobody else can see. He knows where you're clean. He knows where you're not clean. He knows where you're bad. He knows where you're not bad. He knows you. Verse 2, you know when I sit down or stand up, you know my thoughts even when I'm far away. He knows what we think. He can read your mind easier than you can read an email. Your thoughts are broadcast to him in HD over these headphones. He knows what you're thinking before you even think it. He knows what you're about to think. He knows you, and he loves you anyway. He knows where you go. In verse 3, you see me when I travel and when I rest at home. You know everything I do. He sees you when you're sleeping. He sees you when you wait. He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for his sake. He knows the what, the when, and the how of everything that you do. You're never out of his sight, and you're never off of his mind. He knows what you say. Check out verse 4. You know what I'm going to say even before I say it, Lord. That's scary. He knows what you say. God, you know my mind. You know my soul. You know my heart. You know my words. You know my deeds. Check out verse 5 and 6. You go before me and follow me. You place your hand of blessing on my head. Such knowledge is too wonderful to me, too great for me to understand. His mind blows my mind. And he still loves me, and he still wants a relationship with me, and I'm still his favorite kid, and you are too. He knows everything about you and still loves you. Isn't that the stuff you don't tell anybody? You know, the stuff you struggle with, the stuff you look at when nobody's around. All that stuff. He knows and loves you anyway. And loves you anyway. I can trust a God, point 2, I can trust a God that's omnipresent. Yogi Berra once said, the great philosopher, everywhere I go, there I am. Everywhere you go, he's there. Verse 8. I didn't tell Tony to put this one up, I don't think. If I go up to heaven, you're there. If I go to the grave, you're there. Death can't take you from his presence. Distance can't take you from his presence. Verse 9, if I ride the wings of the morning, if I dwell by the farthest oceans, no matter how high you fly, no matter how far you swim, you can't get out of his presence. I remember the first time I ever got on an airplane. I was 17 years old, and I was all by myself, and I was going over to somewhere on the coast of South Carolina because I was on my way to Parris Island. And that's the first time I'd ever rode it wasn't a 30-minute flight, but it was still scary. I was scared. I was scared for more reasons than the airplane, but I was worried. And I got on that airplane, and I wish I'd have known that verse. If I go up to heaven, you're there. If I go down to the grave, you're there. I wish I had known that and believed that back in those days, because I can't get away from him. He holds me in the airplane. He holds me in the car. He holds me in the wherever I'm at. Everywhere I go, he's there. Distance can't take him away. If I ride the wings of the morning, if I dwell by the farthest oceans. In verse 11 and 12, if I could ask the darkness to hide me and the light around me to become night, but even in darkness I can't hide from you. To you, the night shines as bright as the day. Not only does he have x-ray vision, but he has infrared vision. He can see in the dark. And he can see into the dark places of your life. When you're in those places that you can't see the light of day, when you're in those places that all this darkness around you and you feel like you're abandoned and you're alone, he sees you. He sees you in the dark. Nothing can hide you. Nothing can take you. He sees just as clear when you're in the valley as he does when you're on the mountaintop. Nothing can hide you or take you away from the presence of God. I can't even send him an anonymous letter. He knows anonymous. D.L. Moody got an anonymous letter one time, and it only said one word on it. It said, fool. So Moody takes the letter to the pulpit the next Sunday, and he said, you know, funny thing, I got this letter in the mail, and they signed it, but they forgot to write it. There's going to be times in your life when you think, I know God's there, but where is he? Where is he? But God's so high, you can't get over him. He's so low, you can't get under him. He's so big, you can't get around him. You'll never get away from an omnipresent God. He's behind me, protecting me. He's beside me, talking to me. He's in front of me, guiding me. He's already there before I get there. I can trust him because he knows me. Third thing is, I can trust a God that's omnipotent, all powerful. All powerful. God can't do anything that violates his character or that violates his word. He can't do that. But anything else God can do, as long as it doesn't violate his character or violate his word. He can't be a Florida fan or an Alabama fan because that would violate his character. You can't do it. When David is challenged, though, to think about the greatness of God and how huge he said, he doesn't say, hey, let's look at the creation. Let's look at all the wonderful things that God's created. Let's look at the universe. He didn't say any of that. He said, look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. George Gallup, the pollster, he said, if I could statistically prove the existence of God just by looking at the human body and all of its functions, the chances of that just happening are statistically impossible. You had to have had a creator. You had to have had. And David didn't even know what we know today. But even thousands of years ago, a simple shepherd boy could look at the body and know that this didn't just happen. Down in verse 15, it says this, if you watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You know what was woven together? Your brain was woven together. A brain that can store, get this, and I looked this up, you can too, it's on the internet. Can't say if it wasn't true. Your brain can store 2.5 million gigabytes of information. 2.5 million gigabytes. You can make 35,000 decisions per day. And I've seen it with my own eyes when Michelle goes to the mall. I've seen it. 35,000 decisions in a day. Your nose can smell up to 1 trillion odors. And that's just our nose. We won't get into dogs. If your sense of touch can detect 1/25,000th of an inch, your tongue can detect 1 part quinine to 25,000 parts water. That's what he's just weaving together in your womb. And you can't tell me that happened by chance. You're a miracle. And you were put together by a God that knows you, knows everything about you, and loves you anyway. That's the reason why it says in verse 14, thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. I mean, you know, our bodies are incredible, really. I mean, they age. I got out of the shower the other day and looked in the mirror, got depressed. Michelle's like, what's wrong with you? And I said, well, look at me. My arms is pencils. My chest is droopy. I got wrinkles all over the place. She just shook her head and looked at me as if to say, well, your eyesight's perfect. The genetic information that's contained in every cell of the body, it would take a library big enough to hold 1,000,000,000,000 times 4,000 books. Only God could create that. Only a creator that knows what he's doing can come up with something like that. And David doesn't stop there. He goes on down to verse 17 and says, how precious are your thoughts about me, O God. They cannot be numbered. God knows you. He knows us. The simplest thought that God ever had is far greater than any thought that Einstein ever had. Isaiah said, your thoughts are not my thoughts. Your ways are not my ways. I can't figure you out. You know what? I don't want a God I can figure out. If I can figure him out, then I don't need him. I want a God that's bigger than me, that thinks higher than me, that I can't even comprehend him. That's the kind of God I want, and that's the kind of God we've got. Think about the universe. The Hubble telescope has identified galaxies that are 12.3 billion light years away, but light travels 186,000 miles per second. The sun is 93 million miles away. It takes sunlight 8 minutes to travel the 93 million miles to get to us. So the sunlight that we see is already 8 minutes old. Just think about 12.5 billion light years. We're seeing stars that don't exist because they've lived out and whatever they do, explode. Y'all know, just that stuff they teach. We can't comprehend 12.3 billion light years. God's way of saying, you want to know the difference between the way I think and the way you think? We've underestimated God by 12.3 billion light years. If God is all that, if he's omniscient, if he's omnipresent, if he's omnipotent, if what I said to you about God is true, then answer this question. What problem in your life can God not handle? Not only can you trust him with every problem here on earth, but you can trust him with your soul for all eternity. But listen to how David closes this psalm. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out everything in me that offends you and lead me along the path of everlasting life. Search me. Point out to me everything that's wrong. Everything that offends you. Everything that I don't want anybody to know. When I got up this morning and God searched me, I'll tell you what he saw. He saw the envy. He saw the jealousy. He saw the pride, selfishness. He saw the lust and the greed. He saw my battle with bitterness. He saw all the things that I'm glad you can't see. And you know what he said? That's my boy. I love him. I love him. Because even though he saw all that in my heart, when he looks at me, the only thing he sees is the blood of his son that washed my sins away. It didn't just cover my sins. It washed them away. He saw all the things in you this morning that you don't want anybody to see. Those secrets. You know what I'm talking about. And right now, if your heart's pounding a little bit fast, or if you're feeling a little something, that's the Holy Spirit. And he wants to deal with it. You've dealt with it. It hadn't worked good. And he wants to take it. Well, Pastor, if that's true, then how could I ever hope to have a relationship with this God? Well, this great God came to us in the form of a human. Jesus Christ. A baby born in a manger to a criminal on a cross, he pulled off the impossible. He forgave my sin. He solved, and he did it without excusing my sin. He solved the unsolvable. This great God he can't be contained by the universe, but through faith in his Son, he can live in my heart. He knows you like nobody else knows you. He knows everything about you, and he loves you anyway. I know him. He knows me. I invite you to go with me on this incredible journey. Stand to your feet. First of all, if you don't know my Jesus, if you don't know my friend, he knows you. And if you don't know him, I invite you to come. We'll pray a prayer with you that'll make you like so heaven bound, you might as well already be there. And you might live next door to me. That'd be cool. If you don't know him, I want you to come. If you've got something else on your heart, I want you to come. If you need healing in your body, we'll lay hands on you, pray a prayer of faith, anoint you with oil, just like the Bible says, and believe that God's going to heal you. If you need anything, he said, I am whatever you need. So don't wait on anybody. The altar's open.
Hey, I'm Cody Kelly. I am the senior pastor here at Liberty Hill Church, and I just wanted to personally thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. We would love to stay connected with you moving forward. If you wouldn't mind, go ahead and hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell so that we can spend more time together. Also, if you have a prayer request that you would like to share with the pastors of this church, or if you've made a decision to make Jesus the Lord of your life, or if you have a praise report and you want to tell us about something really awesome God has done in your life, please text PRAY to the number on the screen and let us know all about it. Also, if you would like to support this ministry financially, we would appreciate you partnering with us, and you can do so by going to our website, libertyhillchurch.org, and selecting Give. Until next time, we can't wait to see you again.